Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, and this video we're breaking down Stranger Things Season 5.
We are finally back with Stranger Things as we enter the final season. The first 4 episodes are now out and there's a lot of Easter eggs, theories and things to talk about in Hawkins. We'll also be giving our thoughts on the entry and talking about where things might be going. Been 84 years, but I'm very excited to get back to the series. Now, as I'm sure you know, Netflix have split up the season, and it's not only going to release on Christmas, but also New Year's as well. And here's me thinking I was going to get to sit around and eat my cheese board and play Call of Duty Black Ops all day.
Shoot that son of a bitch!
Whoop, never mind. So because of that, we'll be breaking down the episodes, and then the finale when it releases on New Year's.
I'm nice like that.
After Vecna's plan worked, Max was brought back to life but left in a coma with the upside down seeping into the right side up.
The apocalypse is here this season, and it's now taking over. Nope, so there's no end of the world yet, and the cracks have been covered up. School is still in session, and the military have things pretty well contained. 11 is also still a fugitive, and she's slowly starting to master her powers. There's also somewhat of a baton passed to Holly, who gets a lot more focus in the season. With her, we shift from the Dungeons and Dragon lore explaining the Upside Down to a new tone with lots of things mirroring A Wrinkle in Time, which is something I think might be hinting to where stuff could be going. But we'll talk about that more in just a bit. Now, just like the opening of Season 4, we flash back to Season 1. This is November 12th, 1983. Now, this time we follow a different character to last time, who also just so happened to spend some formative years with Vecna. Whereas 11 was in the basement of the Hawkins lab with Henry, Will's in the Upside Down with Vecna. These two scenes, I think, reflect each other really well and work as brilliant mirrors on the idea of things being hidden away below the surface. Vecna is the one who connects them all, and I like how we had Henry in the opening of Season 4 and then his twisted side in this one, along with the different environments. At this moment though, Will is in his castle with his shot looking exactly like the Other Side comic. We also saw this scene in Season 1 Episode 7. He's singing Should I Stay or Should I Go by The Clash, which is the character's safety song. This is what's used to help him find strength, just like how Max's song is running up that hill. Just like the first season, he's then attacked, except here, we actually see the Demogorgon strike. He's got the rifle that he had when he was taken and manages to get a shot off. Bro roll that nat 20 respect. I really like that we see more of Will's time in the Upside Down though, as it did feel a bit underdeveloped in Season 1. Now though, they had the budget to fully explore it, and they give us a major action scene to kickstart the season. He's then grabbed and taken to the library. This is where the cracks converged in the Season 4 finale. It's also the Army's HQ in Hawkins, as we see there's a gate there. Now it's here that Will's tubed by the Mind Flayer, and this is how he got the slugs in his stomach that we saw at the end of Season 1. This is also just like the tentacle used to turn people into puppets for Vecna in Season 3. Now here he's lost his backpack, which I do feel may come into play later on, especially as it probably had his character sheets and stuff. Now this nicely bridges things with Season 1, as it's also the state that Joyce and Hopper found him in. This also confirms that Vecna's the one who sent the Demogorgon after Will, just like he does with Holly later on. Now from these teasers and what we've seen in the trailers, it's been fully confirmed that Will is integral for what Vecna's planning. Just like the last season, he's using prisoners to enact his plans. We then jump to November 3rd, 1987, which is a year and a bit after Season 4's ending. It also dates this as being 4 years after the opening scene, even though everyone looks like they've aged 10 years. Yeah, seriously, Erica looks like an extra on Wet Hot American Summer. But yeah, it has been 9 years since Season 1, and thinking back to how young I was, it was little baby spoilers. But yeah, everyone's aged up, and this includes Holly, who's grown a hell of a lot since Season 1. Her being integral to the plot is also something the producers have been planning for a while. There was even a rediscovered tweet from 2017 that foreshadowed her involvement. She's also already wearing the colours of the cleric mini that Mike gives her later on, and we see she's been targeted by Vecna. However, he's calling himself Mr. Whatsit. He's her imaginary friend and is inspired by the book that she's reading at the table. That is the 1962 novel A Wrinkle in Time. Makes sense that this is connected to demons, as it also had a satanic panic moment just like D&D did, and it ended up on a banned books list. So while the party rationalized the Upside Down and its monsters using Dungeons and Dragons lore, Holly is using this book as a basis. Now, a cleric is a very interesting choice, as they can revive the dead just like 11 in Season 4. They also receive their powers from deities, of which there are many, including Vecna. Interestingly, a cleric is also the same class that Will plays as. The similarities to Will are very clear throughout the season, especially since both of them get an episode titled The Vanishing of with their name then attached to it. Now, speaking of A Wrinkle in Time, that also gives us a huge insight into what's really going on, in that we follow a girl named Meg Murray whose father's missing. There's also the weird Mrs. Whatsit, Mrs. Who, and Mrs. Witch. Throughout the book, it turns out there's an intergalactic war against a being of darkness, which you can of course apply directly to Vecna. In it, they Tessa Meg to different planets, with Tessa being short for a Tesseract. No, not the one from the MCU, but a 4-dimensional object. The 4th dimension is of course time, and the Tesseract allows them to fold time and space. Much like in Event Horizon, this sort of creates a wrinkle in time, you could say, and this is what ties everything together. Now, she learns that the Earth is partially covered in darkness, which you could surmise as being the upside down here. In it, they're then taken to Kamazots, which is where they find identical houses and people going through identical routines. This is the hive mind at work, controlled by the central brain of it. Applied to the show, this is of course Vecna, who may want to connect everything through using a hive mind. The Kamazots remove all individuality from everyone and leave everyone stripped of what makes them them. Chapter 6 in the book is even called Escape from Kamazots, which is also the name of an episode this season. So yeah, look, they're clearly doing that. Now in the book, Meg has to travel to that world where everyone's the same in order to save her father. This is where strange 4-armed beasts live, and despite their scary looks, they end up helping her. Meg then goes back to fight for her dad, and she uses the power of love to overcome it. This shows that emotion and heart are more important than simply just conforming. This is just like 11 when she channeled all her emotions to close the Mother Gate in Season 2.
In the book, Meg's father was behind the glass and kept by the darkness. However, Holly later says that this is Max. However, I feel Max is more fitting as Meg. The person behind the door for me works better as the person trapped at the base. Though 11 initially suspects this is Vecna, it's revealed that it's actually Callie. She was in the widely hated Backdoor pilot episode and used her powers at will and never tried to hide them. So I think it would have been easy for the military to find her and basically use her as a conduit. Most people thought she was a pointless character, so it's nice they've actually brought her in such a crucial way.
Beyond those similarities though, we also see Holly outside the teacher's office, which is very similar to the book. Holly visiting Vecna/Henry's house is also reminiscent of the novel, as Meg went to see the W's house, which is how her whole journey began. But yeah, whether these theories or how they line up are correct or not, they're clearly using this book as a basis to tell some parts of this season, which again is confirmed by her reading it in this opening. Now the episode itself is titled The Crawl, which is a military-like operation carried out by our heroes in order to try and confirm whether Vecna's alive or dead. We learn they've carried this out several times before, but so far haven't unearthed anything. Either way, the Wheelers' house is beyond chaotic, as the Byers family's living there after moving back from California. This means no Argyle, which is a shame. It's a shame that made, I'll be honest. But yeah, there's the usual massive American breakfast with every type of food from pancakes to bacon and so on and so forth. As a Brit watching this, I feel a bit like Boris Yeltsin in the supermarket. Holly also sees a strange figure in the garden, but we're quickly distracted by the noise. The dad is as droll as ever though, and everyone goes about their day, and we see Holly riding with Mike and Will, showing how she's on her way to becoming part of the group. Now as we learn, the show's main hub this season is WSK, or Squawk if you're cool, you call it Squawk. Robin and Steve work at this radio station, which does feel like the best job ever for her. From Scoops Ahoy to the video store, her career's been moving and evolving. Music is also the only thing that's been successful in helping people without powers break out of the upside down. And we be running up that road, you know the one, mate. Jonathan's also wearing a t-shirt of the band The Fall. More on that in just a bit, as I feel like it's some deep foreshadowing, but all in all, the group's running the radio station, and it plays in their plans really well. Not only can music break people out from under Vecna's power, but Robin can also transmit coded messages in plain sight, or plain sound. Through Rockin' Robin's ramblings, she passes on the details of the crawl, and it's a great way to fly under the radar. This is something they also bring into effect when Murray tells them that there's big incursions and a quote-unquote burn. As we learn, the US military is trying to colonize the Upside Down, which is pretty wild. This plays really well against what Vecna wants though, and they're trying to weaponize Dimension X. The Russians were also doing this as well, and this alternate dimension could provide the country with a massive leap forward over the rest of the world. Now Robin seems to be the sole DJ at the station after Jimmy Fast Hands Lee fled. I do wonder if he'll return though, as there is an episode called Shock Jock this season. All I can think of though when watching this is Family Guy with all the sound effects.
Bingo and the baby. 97.1, go hog!
Oh, baby.
We also hear Rockin' Robin by Michael Jackson, from which Robin takes her radio name. The King of Pop also gets mentioned later with The Wiz. It's a massive exposition dump here though, as we learn that Hawkins has been quarantined and the military is everywhere. She mentions that they have regular medical checkups, and it's suspected that the ash that fell at the end of season 4 has likely affected them. I didn't know if this was a comment on the pandemic or what, but they would have been writing the season around that time it was going on, so might have influenced them. I might be reaching. As we know though, Vecna is transformed due to the upside down / Dimension X atmosphere, so there's probably the risk of that happening to the Hawkins residents. As we see though, the cracks have been covered up with metal, and there's even kids that are sledging on them, and clearly just ignorant to what's really going on. The reason that Robin's also allowed to continue her radio show is because she pushes compliance to her audience and basically broadcasts the rules. She's also dating the girl who she had a crush on at the start of the last season and then hit it off with towards the end of the entry. Robin romantically plays Pretty in Pink by the psychedelic furs for her, and no doubt Robin calls Vicky Molly Ringwald as she looks just like the iconic teen movie star. I mean, they even had her wearing a similar hat to Molly in 16 Candles. And that look was obviously done on purpose to resemble the actress. However, their power cuts, and we learn that they're barely keeping the station going. Now it's at this point that we then cut to the school and see Dustin. As we see, he's still mourning the loss of Eddie, and to be honest mate, who isn't? Dustin's choice of coat is also a great 80s reference, as that signifies his mental state. He's now somewhat of a bad boy, bit of a recluse that wears a trench coat, and is trying to keep the spirit of Hellfire alive. The coat's also very reminiscent of Lloyd Dobler in Say Anything, or John Bender in The Breakfast Club. He also has rings like Eddie, and his hair is getting longer and longer. Old Dusty Bun is fully off the deep end though, as he uses a snake to troll a bully later on. It's named Jake, and this might be a reference to Jake the Snake Roberts. As we see, the school surrounded by soldiers, and Dustin even cuts Steve off, which sparks the feud between them later on. I'll always remember the better times though.
Hey, oh.
In terms of social standing though, yeah, Dustin's a pariah now, as both the Hellfire Club and D&D were blamed for the death of Chrissy and Jason. Eddie's reputation is still in tatters, and later we see his gravestones being defiled. And due to Dustin's reaction, you do get the feeling that it's happened many times before. Hopefully we get his name cleared though, especially after that emotional moment with Eddie's uncle at the end of season 4. For now though, the basketball team members have a grudge with him, and I love how Lucas and Mike defend him. They're no longer the kids to be pushed around, and the basketball players back off. Clearly, these kids have been through so much that they're not scared of the school bully. Now they're taking the fight to Vecna instead of being on the back foot like the previous seasons. Unlike Dustin though, the rest of the boys want to blend in and follow the rules so they can be free of any suspicion. 11 is also still wanted by the military, as Sullivan's faction has seemingly won against Brenner's group, and she's perceived as being the problem. They're desperate to hunt her as we get a bait and switch training montage. A body double is captured while 11's training to get through the portal. This scene has been clowned on after being shown on social media, as it's very similar to Rey in The Rise of Skywalker, but for me, it's much more like Hot Rod. Much like the lads, she's now grown up, which can be seen in the usage of her powers. The pumpkins exploding as a stand-in for the heads is clever, as that's also how Hopper started to see the corruption in season 2. Just like Joyce and Will though, Hopper is overprotective of her and won't let her come on the missions, even though she did hit the time target.
With a second to spare.
As we see with Will, things go well when Joyce lets him actually do something. He wants her to sit and have some Eggo to recharge her batteries, just like she's a kid. But she wants to go again. And I did wonder if he was kind of worried that she might hit the time and he wouldn't be able to play it off. We also see as she needs to eat the gross jerky to use her powers fully, so there might also be the worry that the character's a bit drained. Now if you've watched our videos this week, then you might be able to hear I'm a bit under the weather. I am. Me and my wife have been wiped out with flu, and looking after the kids has been a complete nightmare. However, today's sponsor, Next Playground, saved the day, and it's the perfect way to get the kids moving. Next Playground's kept those little lads active, and it's also educational as well. Next Playground is built on motion tracking technology that professional athletes use. Top teams and leagues around the world use this tech to track player movement. Next actually then took that same technology
and made it for families. Your entire body becomes the game controller, so there's no remote, no complicated setup, you just simply move and the game responds. The gaming library is also amazing as well. They've got popular titles like How to Train Your Dragon, Barbie, TMNT, Fruit Ninja, and so many more. They're all really fun and engaging, and you're literally jumping and moving to play. It's the next generation's playground at home, and it allows them to active play in a digital way. Beyond that, their Black Friday sale is happening now. With it, you'll get 20% off on Amazon. The sale also runs through Cyber Monday as well. My link in the description will take you straight there, and if you're shopping for something for the kids that will keep them active and switched on, then Next Playground is perfect. Again, we have a 20% off on Amazon deal, and all you need to do is click that link in the description. Thanks. We then catch up with Murray, who's either working for or pretending to work for Bradley's Big Buy. This was actually the location that Eleven stole the Eggos at in Season 1. He's bringing the kid supplies, which we do see later. Steve and Jonathan still have a bit of beef, or rather, a friendly competition going on as they try and outdo each other and climb up the radio tower. And I'm sorry, I'm still very much a Steve and Nancy truther. This climb, though, is clearly foreshadowing that one of these two dudes will need to climb up there in a nail-biting moment. Just the amount of time they spend on shutting down the electricity on it, them racing to the top, clearly it was setting things up. Jonathan's also wearing the fall on his chest means that someone may fall, especially as we see the tower in the trailer and things look to be getting very, very bad. But both the lads and Hopper's crew then get their orders via Diana Ross's Upside Down. This is of course an on-the-nose reference that lets everyone know what's going down, because yeah, it's upside down and they're going to the Upside Down. Now this song's all about a partner who's cheating, but her relationship's still exciting. Both Hopper and the radio station have secret tunnels, and the bus is where he and Elle interrogate the guy later on. The original party also have their own secret area, which looks like the place that Chrissy met Eddie. Our boy Hopper also gets his own mini to identify himself, which seems to be a fighter. Now, as the Upside Down is a mirror of the right side up, they're able to track Hopper using radio signals. Luckily, they also have a radio van for that. One thing I also found interesting on the map is that the radio shack's inside of the military zone. With radio equipment being integral to their mission, I'm expecting a trip there soon. The base they have behind the bookcase and the secret tunnels are all really cool though, and I love how they're using their own hidden rooms, dimensions, and things underground to carry out their plans. We also see Crawl Date on the top left, which again is the name of the episode, and Mike compares them to dungeon crawls. Now some see it as a waste of time, as Vecna was set on fire and shot, and then he fell out of a window. That moment, of course, mirrored Halloween, where the same thing happened to Michael Myers. And yeah, just like Myers, he then disappeared when the heroes went to check the body. And as we know, Myers, of course, returned in Halloween 2 to hunt Laurie Strode again. Halloween, of course, gets a nod in the name Hawkins, and there's, of course, lots of references throughout. Now, it's in this that we also get an insight into what's going on with Will. He can see through the eyes of the person that Vecna is targeting, like Holly and Derek Turnbow. Will is still connected to the hive mind, and his role's finally becoming crucial. As we see later on, he can look through the eyes of a Demogorgon, and is basically the man on the inside who can possibly relay the plans. But yeah, it's a big step up after he was just like the sad boy in Season 1 pretty much, and everything after that. Now, if you've looked into the expanded lore, then you'll know the pair are actually quite similar. Stranger Things, the first Shadow explained a lot in Vecna's backstory. There we learned that he accidentally went to the Upside Down as a kid and became controlled by the darkness. It was in this that he then gained his powers. The play has kind of muddied the waters a bit though, because they explain his backstory there and say it was the Mind Flayer that gave him the powers, and that the Mind Flayer is basically running things. However, the show obviously has it that the Mind Flayer is Vecna's puppet. Dunno, just a bit all over the place. The old heavy spoilers office, we were theorizing that Vecna returned to the Upside Down after being sent there by 11, and this is when he took control, having built up his abilities. But yeah, drop it below, because that's what the comment section's for, mate. I think in general, though, it's never going to fully make sense and line up, because they clearly retconned Vecna into the series and are kind of pretending it was the plan all along. Like, they actually went back and apparently added the clock sound to Season 1, so it made it seem like it was the plan all along. It was. It was. But yeah, I wonder if we're going to get loads of people with like the Mandela effect who are like, the clock was never there. What the fuck are you talking about? I remember when they dropped the extended post-credit scene for Predator Killer of Killers, and people went back to my ending explain video and like, why haven't you mentioned this? Why haven't you mentioned that? And it's like, because they hadn't released it, mate. They updated it. So yeah, it's a bit all over the place. But yeah, either way, Will also went to the Upside Down as a kid and had a connection to the Mind Flayer.
However, he seemingly never gained abilities. But I love how Will and Henry are mirrors of each other. One went to the upside down but is good, while the other has trauma that makes him take a step towards evil. Cutting to Holly, we then see her looking up at the sky as the roundabout spins around. It's no coincidence, this mirrors what Will saw, and it highlights how the pair have similar connections to Vecna. Also, Derek is the knobhead who makes her go too fast. He's got a character poster and everything though, so he's important. This is of course the same kid who gets targeted later on, who's completely spoiled rotten. He gets heavy spoilers, you could say. Holly then sees her imaginary friend once again, and as we know, this is Henry Creel. His body may also be healing, and we've only seen him in an imaginary world in the episode so far. We then get a look at Linda Hamilton's Dr. K. The metal clang sound effect there, it did seem like a little nod to Terminator, as it's very similar to the sound effect that they used in the intros. Here, she's like a female version of Dr. Brenner, but potentially even more ruthless. In her lab, she's experimenting on the creatures from the upside down, and it makes you wonder, who's the real monster here? She seems to want to stop the Demogorgons and such for killing people, but she also needs 11, and yeah, child exploitation. Considering this is the group that killed her papa though, I doubt she'll want to work with them at all. We also learn that Mr. Whatsit is trying to help Holly and protect her from Hawkins, and the monsters are trying to eat the kids, despite Vecna using Demogorgons and dogs to attack people since season 1. With Mike, we also see as the kids are not only grown up, they're acting like it as well. Mike is acting like a true big brother, and he's helping out Holly. Mike gives Holly a mini who can cast a dimension door, which can apparently take you anywhere, similar to the Tessering from A Wrinkle in Time. Now, because of its ties to that, and you know, the ties that we've talked about with Holly, I'm guessing it will come into play more and more as the season progresses. We also see as Max is still in the coma after the end of season 4. The picture that she drew is still on the wall as well. Lucas is clearly struggling with things though, and not even Kate Bush can save her. Their doom romance is then mirrored in Robin and Vicky. They can't be together as Robin keeps cancelling their dates and Will catches them together. Will is of course gay, and it was hinted that he had feelings for Mike in season 4. Robin has had to keep her sexuality a secret, as the 80s were of course not as accepting a time. And Will is kind of enviously looking on as they found each other while he still got unrequited love. I know that might not be the way it's portrayed, you can interpret it, but yeah, there's lots of ways you can read into it, and it is something I think that will come out at some point down the line. Robin then says maybe she should keep her hat on for the date, and only this hat. But that would mean she's naked, mate, and surely you would need some clothes, so why not check out our merch store right below the video? There, we've just launched our brand new Vecna shirt, which you can see up behind me. That's going to look great on you, that. We also have these ones inspired by Welcome to Derry, which is another great horror show that's out right now. The more you get as well, the more of a discount you get on top of that, and it all goes towards helping videos like this get made. Either way, we see as Dustin arrives at Eddie's grave. The bullies have been waiting, and they've used his poor Snake Jake's blood to write on the headstone, which is pretty messed up, mate. Dustin laughs though and explains that he used prismatic spray to defeat Vecna, and he throws it over the other kids. It blames him for a bit irritating I can see, but basically they kick the crap out of him and it causes him to miss the crawl. The group are assembling though, and we see as Mike and 11 finally get a moment together. Mike mentions that in his campaign, the party get to live and have a happy ever after in a far, far away land. The first time we saw the party playing Dungeons and Dragons, it could be assumed that they probably didn't survive. A Demogorgon appeared, and Will was urged to cast a fireball instead of a protection spell. He failed the role, and I feel like he may protect the party in the end instead of trying a killing blow. He is a cleric after all. They could potentially be tying everything back to that game, and I think if they did, it would be such a good full circle moment. What this conversation does though is show Mike his optimism and could hint to them leaving Hawkins for happy lives in the end. And I do kind of hope we get a happy ending. The expanded party then get ready for the dungeon crawl, and Jonathan and Steve are forced to work together. Once again, Joyce and Hopper separate, with him not coming back to her. Lad's got some riz though. Now it's from here that we cut to Holly's room, which is very bright and cheerful. She's got a rainbow bright poster and bed set, and this show is another clue as to what may happen with the character. Now in that, a girl's taken to a horrible dark land, but she ends up bringing joy to it. She also frees 7 children that the King of Shadows has kidnapped. The 1985 movie saw the main character help to save Earth, which had been plunged into darkness. So she might end up bringing colour to the desolate Dimension X. Even her light bright we see later on has a rainbow on it. This is the same one that Dustin grabbed off her to use in season 4, so it could all be tying back to that. Now downstairs, Holly's mum's very worried about her being too old to talk to imaginary friends. Clearly, she doesn't want to grow up though, which is why Henry's house seems like the best place to be at first. Also, Lucas and Mike in the tower cracked me up a bit as the former calls himself a sniper. He's like staring through binoculars. We then see the gate being opened up, just like the growth in the Hawkins lab in season 2. The low-tech tracking is so much fun here though, and incredibly creative as Hopper sneaks in with the soldiers. The incursion goes majorly wrong though, as Vecna's puppet Demogorgon arrives and shreds the soldiers to pieces. It then makes its way to get Holly, and I love how the beast gets on top of the truck and claws the canvas like a xenomorph. The design of the Demogorgons was of course based on those creatures, and yeah, the way it moves and runs just looks fantastic. The power then gets destroyed and the Demogorgon makes its way to the Wheelers as Karen gets blasted on wine. As Holly sees that her nightlight is flickering, we also see a poster for An American Tail. Here the mouse Feifel gets separated from his family after moving to New York, just like how Holly gets split up from hers. And I tell you what as well, mate, banger movie that. She also has a Care Bear because, of course she does. This also follows the kids taken to a magical world who help defeat darkness. That had a boy corrupted by dark magic, which you could of course compare to Vecna. I also love how her room is the total opposite of her bullies. He has an ultimate dude room and even an arcade machine in there. That then takes us to episode 2. All while the attack's going on, her mum's having a bath and enjoying Fernando by ABBA. Absolute banger that as well, mate. I literally just bought the vinyl the other day. Still in the shrink wrap. Vinyl, kids, is what music is played on. The bath is then interrupted though as Holly rushes in. The mother and daughter hiding under the water also gave me vibes of Ripley and Newt from Aliens. Namely, when they hide from the facehugger. In that movie, we even saw Newt taken by the Xenomorphs, which is sort of like what happens with Holly here. We even get a moment that's also very similar to the final showdown.
Stay away from my daughter. Get away from her, you bitch!
Coming off the back of this is actually a great video that compares season 2 to Aliens that I watched way back when. Like probably 7 years ago at this point. At a time when my knees didn't hurt when I got out of bed. And I actually went out for New Year's instead of making Stranger Things videos. She then stabs the hell out of it with a broken wine bottle, which helps her daughter. However, just like Holly's dad, it only leads to her getting hurt and Holly's taken while both parents end up in hospital. This hospital scene later on, again, feels like another nod to Halloween 2, which is where the majority of that movie takes place. Coming across the scene, it also looks like a slasher movie, and we see Nancy has some guilt here. Now though, Vecna has showed her everything he plans to do, and how the monsters of the Upside Down will take over and kill everyone. In season 4, he used fear to open up his gates, and the killings were brutal and gruesome. The victims were often taunted first before then being killed, which also feels very similar to Pennywise, with it of course being released in the 80s. The fear and psychic energy then opened up the gates, however, as he witnessed, love and cherished memories ended up winning the day. Just like how 11 used love to close the gate in season 2. This time though, he's not killing them, and he actually seems to be collecting kids.
I'm getting the word nonce.
Again, it feels like Pennywise taking kids to the sewers to make their bodies float, and I did see a lot of similarities in the characters. Lucas also realizes that the anniversary of Will's disappearance is in just 3 days, so whatever Vecna is planning will happen on November 6th. Sullivan then arrives on the scene and we can hear the ticking of a clock, which is of course Vecna's calling card, which we all know from season 1, mate. We all remember the ticking clock. He knows that 11's in the Upside Down, which is why his second in command heads into there later on. How lucky she just randomly found Hopper as she tracks the Demogorgon that took Holly. Elle can't find her though at the moment, as she's in a weird pocket pod of the Upside Down. Will also explains how deep his connection is getting as the visions are intensifying. He says their connection's never been severed, they only thought that it was. He keeps rubbing his neck all the time, which we have seen throughout a lot of the seasons. There are lots of theories though that Vecna wants to use Will's body since his has been messed up. Some even think that Will's gonna replace Vecna in the Upside Down, sort of how Loki replaced He Who Remains. I imagine that it's sort of like a Lucifer thing, where he has to stay in control to keep the Upside Down from attacking the right side up. And yeah, that might be how we end the season. We also learn that Will seeing through Vecna is just like Dungeons and Dragon lore, in that the Eye of Vecna is a powerful artifact that allows the user to gain the evil being's powers. The Hand of Vecna is of course an aspect as well, so Will using the eye of Vecna is quite a cool callback. Will might even need to use Vecna's powers against him if he gets taken over. In the lore, Vecna was also defeated by his second-in-command Kaz. It's said that his sword whispered to him to vanquish the figure, and thus he used it to strike Vecna down. Back with Steve, we see as he tries to use his Ladyman skills to jumpstart the van. Inside, on the dashboard, you can also see a sticker for Halley's Comet. Now this is a comet of ice that passes Earth every 72 to 80 years. Some at the time thought it was the coming of the apocalypse, hence the repent part. I remember it being like a big plot device and lots of stuff around this time, and I did wonder if this could be an astrological event that could end up affecting the town or the characters in the show. But yeah, either way, it just ties into the era. The lads then argue over Nancy as Steve wants to bring flowers to the hospital. God, I hope this storyline ends at some point, mate. There's bigger stuff going on. Harper and Elle then hunt the Demogorgon, who's bleeding, which is giving me major Predator vibes.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
Hopper's also hurt and bleeding himself, which is a nice little parallel. I love how we can also overhear Lucas as the pair move on in the Upside Down. It's neat foreshadowing about how Max is also in here as well and searching for Holly. In the right side up, Lucas begs for a sign, and her ECG can be seen as being in the 60s. As Dustin said,
within -60 and -70 dB.
Now that could be a coincidence, but Lucas said he doesn't believe in them. So that might be the sign. Mike then puts 2 and 2 together after seeing A Wrinkle in Time and starts to think there's more to Holly's imaginary friend. We also have a rainbow bright puzzle next to it, showing how important both of these are. The investigation into Mr. Whatsit is similar to Nancy looking into the Creel family during season 4. They end up heading to their mother's floor later after Nancy uses misogyny like a superpower. Steve and Dustin's friendship then hits a record low here as he's acting like a father figure for him, which is something that really angers old Dusty Bun. He doesn't believe his cover story for 1 minute, especially as Steve was on the side of the bullies in season 1. Robin then realizes that Will can solve all of this, but he needs to get out from under the shadow of his mother. She says, "Great Scott," just like Doc Brown, and tricks Joyce by saying that the new flux capacitor is down again. In Back to the Future, this is of course the thing that makes time travel possible. Will also finally has someone who isn't trying to baby him and actually believes in him. He was targeted by Vecna as a kid and has a remote viewing going on, but he's still getting sidelined. Nancy's then exposed as she was found with 11, which probably means she'll be targeted next. However, Dr. K is more interested in the fact that Elle's in the Upside Down. Hopper then talks about his time in the army, namely Vietnam. He's on his own sort of guerrilla war here against both the army and Vecna. Hopper also using the tunnels is much like how the Viet Cong did during that conflict. Just like Joyce, he wants to protect Elle and is maybe a bit overprotective due to his daughter's death. Robin and Will then come across what she calls a mandala. They're usually connected to meditation, and Carl Jung hypothesized that they may represent the creator's mind state at the time of drawing. There are multiple colours as well, which represent Holly's colourful outfits. Elle and Hopper then arrive at the Upside Down boundary wall and go past the Turnbow real estate advert. It gets shot a bit later, which I feel signifies how Derek is next, and it's a good bit of foreshadowing that. Beyond the wall is where Holly's been taken, and you could see this as Vecna's castle. The campaign Vecna Lives was released in 1990 and could be seen as a sequel to Eddie's campaign. There, you must travel to Vecna's citadel and take on the cult of Vecna, similar to what they did in season 4. Holly's mum then reveals that the imaginary friend Mr. Whatsit is named Henry. He has a pocket watch which fits with the clock theme, because we all remember the clock from season 1, we all remember. Also, if my voice sounds a bit screwed, I took a break between recordings to rest my voice and then came back, and now it sounds like this, yeah. But yeah, again, it's fitting with the idea that he's trying to use love and good memories as opposed to fear. Will then says that Vecna is part of the hive mind, even if he controls it. So if you can get into the hive mind, there is a possibility you can break him and not only control the world there, but also control him. Now he's taken Holly to his old house just as it was in the past, and Mr. Sandman plays as we close out episode 2. That's of course all about dreams, and it ties in with the theme of the season. It also makes me wonder the extent of what the Upside Down can become. If it can mirror the Upside Up in a darker way, then it could also potentially mirror it in a positive way. Yeah, he's made the perfect world for her, kind of like the Matrix, to keep her occupied. But there are boundaries. He talks about the monsters in the woods, and it feels very like The Village, even down to the yellow cloak that she ends up wearing. Now, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, mate, but it turns out that the monsters are make-believe, and the world they've been kept in is a fake world, and they're in the modern day. Sorry, mate, I know you've had that spoiled anyway at some point in the past, so I don't feel bad. But yeah, it definitely feels like it applies to the show, with there being a fake world and him lying about there being monsters in the forest. Now, as we begin episode 3, the wall seems to fix itself despite 11 using all of her powers. It puts itself back together and looks similar to the gate. Hopper also leaves his knife, which gives the pair away as the army arrive to hunt down 11. They use the sound cannon, which manages to stop Elle's powers. They're also very casual in the Upside Down. They're so casual that one soldier even takes a leak on the wall. Meanwhile, poor old Will's found by his mum, but he finally stands up to her. But yeah, if my kid went missing into some cosmic horror dimension, I probably wouldn't let them leave their room again. We then see Derek, who is the next victim. There's actually a pretty clever Easter egg here, as he has a model of a Tesseract. Well, the best model we can make to perceive what a Tesseract is. It's a 4-dimensional cube that may or may not play into the idea of there being another dimension inside the Upside Down beyond the wall. Mr. Clark also brings up some more science concepts, including wormholes, and it really feels like the season might break the Upside Down and maybe even Dimension X in general, and give us a proper scientific explanation. Now he's making this because, as we see on the board, they're studying a wrinkle in time. Henry appears behind him, and as we mentioned earlier, he's being nice as opposed to using fear. We then catch up with Holly, who's living the dream with a huge breakfast spread, which brings things full circle from episode 1. She's very confused how he knows that blackberries are her favourite, and he also knows that Derek loves chocolate chip pancakes, but who doesn't, mate? Henry then goes out for most of the day, and he makes her promise that she doesn't go out into the woods. We see someone watching her and later learn that this is Max. Now, Holly's in a sort of Garden of Eden, and he uses his gifts to keep her compliant, which also includes a boombox. This comes along with a cassette of Tiffany's self-titled album. Yes, kids, you see, we used to listen to these things on tape back in the day. Now, obviously, I'm sure you recognise the iconic tune, I Think We're Alone Now, but it comes from another Netflix show, which is The Umbrella Academy. But yes, a very, very famous song. Meanwhile, Dustin returns to the squawk and feeds everyone a fake story about how his face got smashed like the like button. During this, Will explains that Derek's next. Robin then goes into how Vecna stalks people in their minds. Now, I don't think it's any coincidence that we see a dream world in this episode, as Frank Darabont is the director of this installment. He wrote the legendary Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors, which was released the same year as this season takes place. There's even some clear nods to Freddy, with the villain attacking people in their dreams. Now Will plans to kidnap Derek and take him to a farm blindfolded. This is actually the same farm that had its pumpkins rot due to the Upside Down. Derek also can't fall asleep before they get there, or Vecna will nab him. Further playing on that Freddy Krueger theme from last season and that Darabont connection. Meanwhile, Holly bakes while listening to Tiffany. She's very much alone now and tries on lots of different dresses before settling on a blue and white one. It's sort of a reverse of Alice's one in Alice in Wonderland, and her story is kind of similar here. She's with a mysterious person who has a pocket watch and is headed through the looking glass. She then sees a picture of the Creel family. Now I am wondering if Vecna is trying to recreate his family in a weird way. Holly definitely looks like his sister though. She also said how the house looked like a fairy tale when we saw Henry's backstory. And guess what her name is? Alice. Yes, very interesting. Alice! Oh, the fuck is Alice? Henry, though, was much, much darker. While Derek isn't killing animals and such, he's still a total dickhead. Henry is even wearing a hat like his father, and we see a young Henry Creel. The picture might be from before he was taken into Dimension X that took place in the first Shadow. We learn that he was a Boy Scout and even see his spyglass. It says Captain Midnight, and this was a major Easter egg from the first Shadow. When Henry goes missing inside a cave and has his first encounter with Dimension X, he has a Captain Midnight spyglass. And yeah, shout out to the YouTuber Captain Midnight as well. She then takes his scarf and woggle before Max pretends to write Holly a letter asking to meet at the X. Despite being told not to go through the woods, she ends up doing it. And it's very Little Red Riding Hood as well. The scarf is also similar to Clara's character, and the cloak completes the look. The house even has the playground as well that was outside in season 1. We then see as Holly eventually reaches a rocky area with scorpions and a giant rock wall. This is clearly a manifestation of the wall that Hopper and Al found. However, it's also a reference to the first Shadow play as well. There, Henry came into contact with Dimension X while he was in the Nevada caves. This ties back to the government facility that housed the experiments in Rachel, Nevada that basically caused Henry to be the way he is. Their rogue staff member stole equipment from Dr. Brenner and hid it inside a nearby cave. This is what Henry eventually stumbled across and basically, turned him, made everything messed up. But yeah, that's exactly why he doesn't want to go back there. She's then found by Max, who's also trapped in this weird perfect world. Meanwhile, Hopper and 11 are on the run, and after a big shootout with grenades as well, mate, big boom stuff, they've captured one of the soldiers to interrogate. They need to get out of the upside down virus supply convoy, however 11 just wants to know how to get through the wall.
How thick is wall?
Depends.
Luckily, 11 can get into his brains doing the psychic stuff and find out both the convoy and also what the wall is. Hopper mentions how soldiers in Vietnam would also cut the ears off fallen enemies to make necklaces. This is likely referring to the infamous Tiger Force, who were a long-range reconnaissance patrol division that committed many war crimes. He also mentions that 11 isn't just a little girl and that he had friends and that's Huey, which was referring to the helicopter she destroyed in season 4. 11 manages to get into his head though and find out who Dr. K is, and it's through this that she learns she's hiding something in a secret locked off vault. We then catch up with Erica, who looks a lot older, and the party need her to knock out the Turnbow family so they can go and save Derek. One problem though. Erica is no longer friends with Derek's sister after they fell out during PE. They plan to use benzos to knock them out though, which Robin attempts to swipe from the hospital. I did crack up as well when Robin was roasting Will's bowl cut and saying they're not that popular anymore. They never were popular, mate. There was that one kid in every class who had one, but that was it. But yeah, salute you if you did rock a bowl cut for that long. You looked fantastic. He also tries to find out how you know if someone likes you.
Guess who likes you?
Murray then shows up and hands over the gear that they need for the turbo trap, but he doesn't have anything that can help them fix the van. The vehicle isn't fast enough, so Dustin takes it upon himself to use Steve's BMW. We then hear "Oh Yeah" by Yellow, which was used in the 80s classic Ferris Bueller's Day Off. They were played when Ferris wanted to use his mate's dad's Ferrari, and we even get a clear note of that movie later when they drive the Beamer through lots of back gardens. Akin to how Ferris ran through the gardens in the film's famous scene. Nancy then has the genius idea to put the telemetry tracker inside a shotgun shell. Pretty genius that. We then learn what's actually in the cassette tape, and it turns out he's carrying an engagement ring. Congratulations. Guess all the chances of Steve and Nancy's over, eh? But yeah, when Murray handed it over, I did think it might be the devil's lettuce. Also, I feel like my voice cracking's making me more emotional about everything. But yeah, I do like how it's come full circle, and if you remember, they hooked up at Murray's place first, so yeah, it makes sense to bring it back here. We then cut to Derek's room, which is like Richie Rich's bedroom. He's got a NES and is playing Ghosts and Goblins, but it does appear like he's playing the arcade version as opposed to the NES port. Could be wrong though. Wasn't even born yet, and the game's way too hard for me to play. The lad has a hang-on arcade machine though and a poster for Pee-wee's Big Adventure. It's funny how in that movie, Pee-wee had a rocket outside his house, just like Vecna. Although Derek is more like Francis than Pee-wee Herman. In the movie, his bikes get stolen, with bikes being a huge part of the party's mission in the show. There are G.I. Joe posters as well as Rock'em Sock'em robots on the floor. Derek even has a He-Man Castle Grayskull playset. It was originally designed to be the place of the ultimate battle between good and evil, which fits with the theme here. The live-action movie was even released in 1987, which is when this season takes place. We also see a Master of the Universe blanket on his bed when the Demogorgon attacks. Derek is such a dickhead though, and he's rude to his sister and family. He doesn't want to come down for dinner, but Tina steals the cartridge, which forces him downstairs. Chuckled as the mother said, "Be nice unless it's Mormons or a Democrat," and Ronald Reagan was president at the time and in his second term, and I'm guessing looking at how rich they are, they're probably following him. But we're not getting political for 40 years ago. Erica then arrives to drug the family. Reminds me a lot of Billy Vecna in season 3, and there he kidnapped a family after having dinner with them. Erica though shows up with crocodile tears and a pie to say sorry. They're not to feel bad though, as Tina's just as horrible as the rest of the family. A real Cruella de Vil type. The plan then works as her parents pass out and Erica reveals herself like some sort of horror movie character, which was hilarious. They set the trap in full Home Alone style, even though that was about 3 years too early. But yeah, the amount of traps, hole in the floor cut open, it's all kind of like the lethal versions of that movie. And to be fair, they were pretty lethal anyway, but yeah, the sticky bandits were immortal, luckily. Steve then looks at the chainsaw, which might be a callback to the Evil Dead franchise. This scene also feels like a mirror of the Demogorgon fight scene in Russia last season. The plan goes all wrong though, as Derek's taken off the Transformers pillow over his face. So Vecna knows where he is.
That takes us to episode 4, which is titled Sorcerer. Starting with Joyce in the barn, we hear some of Vecna's plan. Turns out that What's-It's been filling Derek in on this stuff, and how they're actually the bad guys. You're the bad guys. Our editor Steesh also pointed out a lot of similarities to this tale and the story of the Pied Piper. I'm sure you've heard it before, but just in case you haven't, he basically led children to a magical mountain that people couldn't go to. Much like what's in the Upside Down. The Pied Piper also put kids under a hypnotic influence, much like what Vecna does with his psychic abilities. During the scene, a Demogorgon arrives which Joyce stands up to. Speaking of psychic abilities, we see Will reconnect to it, and this helps to hold the creature back. Hitting it with the beamer, it then rushes to the Upside Down and Steve chases after it. It's in this that we see where the kids are kept, which is just like what Will was in the opening flashback. This seemed like another Alien reference, and it was very akin to the Xenomorph hive from the deleted scene in Alien. Cutting to Sword in the Stone, this is a magical tale of King Arthur and Merlin. I do wonder if this further foreshadows Will's role, as Arthur ends up ruling Camelot in the end. Know what rhymes with Camelot? Camazotz, which is where Vecna has the kids. Who else has the kids are the military, and we see them rounding up the miller's daughter Debbie. Using school buses to pull kids together, they're not the only ones with nefarious plans. Kate plans to use them as bait, and it's all part of her idea to lure out Eleven. However, what Kate doesn't realise is they're part of Vecna's endgame, and having them all in one location, terrible idea. Back at the farm, Will's also tapped into the hive mind in a way like never before. Compared to a signal coming in strongly at the radio centre, this can overpower everything. They come up with a plan to use the tunnels to go into the base, and we get a great retelling of the Great Escape. This includes the tunnel names of Tom, Dick and Harry, which were dug by the POWs in that movie.
I like Dick.
Yeah, me too. He's my favourite character in Welcome to Derry. Videos on the channel now. Either way, we watch Eleven and Hopper storm the base. It's a great action scene that builds off the training at the start, and she has to use her jump to leap the fence. Hopper is slowly letting her do more, but you can tell he feels very uneasy about it. Meanwhile, we see Steve and the gang have hit a wall. Literally, hey? With Max and Holly, we then watch them enter her home and learn about what she's been going through. This includes seeing the lab, which then transitions to a 50s high school. To Shaboom by the courts, we see a young Joyce who still sounds like she's in her 50s. Nah, but I did appreciate the dub, and I can't really be making fun of anyone else's voice, especially when mine sounds like this at the moment. We also see Steve Harrington's dad, who too has his son's, let's say, less charming characteristics. Season 1 didn't happen for that lad, so I do wonder if he ever changed. We don't really know much about Steve's dad beyond him being a business owner, but yeah, this is just a nice little bit of lore. Max then sees him chuck away an Oklahoma flyer, which is a little nod to the Stranger Things play. The Duffer Brothers cleared it up with Variety and said they're starting to tie things together, and that these Easter eggs are more of a nod to Henry's past and how he starred in the play. It also feels very Back to the Future. Now we learn Max got stuck between that and the lab and kept wondering until she heard Lucas playing Kate Bush. Taking her through her terrible memories, we get another scene echoing the running one. However, the song stopping left her stranded. Bloody tape rewinds? Kids today, if you're a kid watching this, that would be like buffering. It would be like buffering. Chased by Henry, she eventually made it to the wall, and again why he stopped is because of all those painful memories connected to Nevada. Meanwhile, we watch as Derek arrives at the base with his G.I. Joe lunchbox, which is calling back to the posters in his room. Also love how you can see the dent in the front, which was done in the explosion. Around the 50-minute mark, we can see this is used as a way to alert Derek, which is a really nice touch. Taken to Private Chapman, this is also a little Easter egg. Chapman is actually the name of the university where the Duffer Brothers graduated from. Derek then tells the kids, who in one looks like Michael Jackson in the Thriller video, and not the zombie. He tells the kids, but no one initially listens except Debbie. Meanwhile, Dustin realizes the wall's a circle wrapping around Camazotz. It also means the base reflects it really nicely, and we have these two sides with bases. At the center is the upside-down version of the Hawkins lab, which is ground zero for where everything started from. After a heart-to-heart with Robin about embracing who you are, I feel like this encourages Will to step up at the end. I'll talk about more of what that unlocks in just a bit, but it's a very important speech. As this is happening, my guy returns to the base, which is when Elle discovers firsthand just how prepared they are. Fitted with sonic defenses, this stops her from opening the doorway. At the base, the tunnel plan works with a gang sneaking kids out akin to the one-by-one prison escape in Great Escape. Just like that film though, things go wrong. However, here it's due to a water leak that eventually leads to the guards being alerted. And thus, things fall apart mid-plan. I love how this idea of escape also reflects the base break-in we have with Hopper and Elle. Kay comes across 11, while Hopper gets a bloody poor scientist killed, mate. That's a bit unfair. But yeah, opening of the door to release Callie, that's a nice way to reflect the escape that we also have in the right side up. Now, though we don't get any deaths in this volume, I did think we might see Hopper go. Not only is he bleeding out, but he also gets grabbed by a tentacle. He also has the explosive vest, and yeah, though it doesn't lead to his death, I did wonder if they were aiming towards that for the end of the season. Kay tortures him, and in many ways is sort of a mirror of Vecna, who also uses the Upside Down's creatures as her tools. Eventually, Hopper and Elle overpower her, but she's set up as a nice formidable foe for the rest of the season. Remembering his dying daughter, Hopper eventually goes to the doorway, thinking he's going to take down Vecna, but it's a twist. And yeah, we get that reveal with Callie. Now elsewhere, we see as Murray opens up the tunnel, but unlike the Great Escape, they actually get out to the tree line. Taking kids in the Bradley's Big Buy van, we see Vecna's forces are unleashed on the right side of base. He's come to collect the kids, and I love this whole scene in this climax, basically. Just them banging through the metal paneling felt like a shark moving under the water, and it highlights they could have really broken in at any time they wanted to. Vecna was trying to move undetected under the surface though, but now it's time to spring forth. Literally. Watching the Demogorgons versus the army is such a good finale, and you fully understand how outmatched the humans are. The one shot of following Mike leading them out, so well done, and it feels like the war zones in Children of Men, all a lot more supernatural. They also chase Murray and the gang, but it's not until Vecna finally reveals himself the plan starts to come together. He is evolved and even more twisted than what we've ever seen before. It's kind of like when William Birkin comes back down the line in Resident Evil 2. He just tears the soldiers apart and seems completely unstoppable. As far as introductions go, I couldn't think of a better one, and it just marks out how powerful that he is. Once the dust settles, he basically lays out his plan to Will and tells him that it was through him he realized he could reshape minds. He targeted kids because they're more easily shaped and controlled, basically being the perfect vessels. He leaves Will behind believing that he's weak, but just like Vecna, he's also evolved as well. Using his newly unlocked abilities, he destroys the Demogorgons and saves his friends. Remembering his childhood with Mike and pushed on by Robin's words, we see his life as a kid, and there might have been some dust in the room, mate, because there's got to be. But yeah, this also shows him as a sorcerer, and he steps up and unlocks these powers, with even his eyes going white like Vecna's before he carries out his signature snapping. His nose also bleeds just like 11, and he is 12, 13, 14, I don't know, mate. We then get to Black, but I think this indicates a lot of ways that things are going to go. I actually feel like Will use these abilities to control the Mind Flayer, and this will be the way to stop Vecna. This scene showed firsthand how flamethrowers don't even work on him, and yeah, bullets have no chance at all now. So I think they're going to need something bigger, and the Mind Flayer is the kind of wild card that can definitely become that. It also ties in with Vecna's origin too, and if weaponized, could definitely be used to strike fear in him. That's how I think things are going to go though, but yeah, if you have other theories, then drop them below.
Now, as for my thoughts on the season, I had a weird time with it when I first started watching it, mate. I don't know if it was overproduced or what, but I don't know. Everything felt so fake. It was weird. I know it's not real, mate, before you start, but I think in the past when they had a lower budget, stuff just seemed more realistic. There was a ton of green screen, crazy over-the-top creature stuff, and them attempting to do de-aging, which I don't really think they pulled off. So it actually seemed better when they had a lower budget and weren't trying to do every special effect ever. Does that make sense? I don't know, just something when I was watching the first episode, I was looking around like, is this me? I don't know, it's just not connecting with me. Everything is turned up to 11, but fortunately, I did get into it come episode 2. I think this was a pretty strong set of episodes, and I love the mysteries and changes with Vecna. Also, the ties to A Wrinkle in Time was so well put together, and I think that worked really, really well. Come episode 3, I was fully settled into it, and I am excited to see where things go and how they wrap things up. Anyway, that wraps up part 1 of season 5, and I'd of course love to hear your thoughts and theories below. How do you think the first part turned out, and will you be ruining Christmas and New Year to watch part 2 and 3, or potentially improving it? Please drop a like on the video and drop a comment with all your thoughts below. If you want to follow us on Instagram as well, then check us out at Heavy Spoilers. Did you know as well that members of the channel also get early access to videos like this, and if you click the join button you get at least one breakdown a week before anyone else. It's just 99 cents a month, less than $12 a year, and yeah, hopefully that's not a lot to you, but if a lot you do it, means a hell of a lot to us, and we really appreciate it. Anyway, on screen right now we've got a breakdown of Welcome to Derry, so hopefully I'll see you over there after this. If not though, thanks for sitting through this video, thank you for bearing through my voice, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care, peace.